instant hit, apparently. An instant hit on TikTok.
Because it's real. It's true.
It's real and true, and people relate.
We gotta go to the store, dude.
Okay, let me open Kindle. Alright, do you remember what happened last time?
Give me the rundown.
They went to that dye place to look for the ghost robe and got attacked by a bunch of ghost robes, and they met the masked man from Hua Chung's place.
Right.
And he was like, don't worry about this. Hua Chung doesn't want you to worry about this. He's going to help you out. And Shilian's like, I can do it myself. And then Long Ying is with them. And there's like, Shilian remembered that in the past, Shi Ching Xuan mentioned that the man with the mask might be Yin Yu, who used to rule side by side with Xuan Yuzhen. But then supposedly he got like jealous of his power and like made him wear the brocade immortal and almost cut his head off, and then he got banished. All right, chapter 70. The 99th ghost robe hidden in danger. Shilian shot to his feet. Wait, let me read the last paragraph of the last one, actually. Alright, the last paragraph. Upon the rows of light, flowy white fabrics in front of him, there was the dark, shadowed silhouette of a human. This time it wasn't headless, nor was it fluttering. The one standing behind those long curtain fabrics was very much a man, and the edges of his features could be easily distinguished, such as his remarkably tall height and the disheveled state of his hair. Now we're on chapter 70. Shilian shot to his feet. The brocade immortal? Naturally, the silhouette didn't respond. It also did not move, standing there motionless. Shilian set a hand on the other two's shoulders to pin them where they were. Don't move, he whispered. A night breeze blew by moments later, and that man's silhouette seemed to sigh, then dispersed with the wind. Shilian abruptly stood. Then a knock sounded from the door of the dye house. All three of them looked towards it. Who is it? Shilian raised his voice to ask. A man's voice answered from outside. Your Highness, it's me. Shilian walked over to the door, and on the other side was a man with bright, proper features and an upstanding, divine form. He entered with his hands clasped behind him. Shilian was a little stunned. Lingwen, why did you come in person? Lingwen fixed his sleeves. Since I heard your Highness say things were difficult, I figured typical heavenly officials wouldn't be able to assist, so I've come to see what's going on for myself. Greetings, your Highness, Qi Ying. Why are you sitting on the ground? What's wrong? What's with that look? It was Lingwen in male form. Shilian walked to the cloth curtain and flipped it open. Sure enough, there was nothing behind it. He turned to address Lingwen once more. The brocade immortal showed itself. What? Lingwen replied in amazement. It must have been it. I'm quite sure, Shilian said. It was a young man, very tall, maybe 7 centimeters taller than me. Judging by his physical structure, he must be skilled in martial arts. Lingwen was somewhat doubtful. Your Highness, are you sure? We've never had word that the brocade immortal showed itself to anyone in the past few centuries. Besides, didn't you say that none of these 98 ghost robes were the real thing? Could someone be playing a trick? I'm afraid that's not possible, Shilian replied. After that wave of agitation was over, we shut the door and windows, and set an array to prevent ghost robes from sneaking out and harassing mortals. Things inside couldn't get out, and things outside couldn't come in. There were only 3 of us here, so who among us would play tricks? After mulling it over for a moment, Lingwen said, Then perhaps the real thing encountered some special circumstance, or maybe what you saw was a vengeful spirit possessing one of the ghost robes? Lang Ying and Xuan Yizhen were both crouched on the ground, staring blankly and daydreaming, while Shilian and Lingwen stood with their arms crossed, assuming the stance of adults as they engaged in serious discussion. In the end, Lingwen suggested, Why don't I take these ghost robes to the palace of Lingwen and have my people examine them? If they don't find anything, we can make inquiries at the next meeting. I'm sure someone in the upper court is an expert. Giving the idea some thought, Shilian nodded. That's probably a good idea. But this mission was assigned to us, so I want to be a little more thorough. Since the real Brocade Immortal is mixed into the pile, let me think up some methods and give identifying it another shot. If I haven't managed any progress by tomorrow, I'll hand the 98 ghost robes over to you. After all, this case wasn't under the jurisdiction of the Palace of Lingwen. There's no need for your Highness to be so polite, Lingwen said. Oh, and if you'll be sending them over tomorrow, it will be 101 pieces, correct? Shilian was puzzled. Why are there suddenly 3 more? Then it dawned on him. You're suspicious of the robes we're wearing right now? It's not impossible, Lingwen noted. Shilian's cultivation robes were so worn that they were fraying at the edges, and he lifted the corner of one sleeve to demonstrate. I've worn this robe for several years now. It definitely doesn't have issues. I recently purchased the one Long Ying is wearing right now, so he didn't obey my commands, so it also shouldn't be a problem. He had told Long Ying not to do housework, but Long Ying still chopped wood. He had told him to stay home like a good boy, but Long Ying still came along. However, Lingwen shook his head. That's not what I mean. Your Highness, you might not be aware of this, but the evil chi on the Brocade Immortal is strong. It will pass on to other normal articles of clothing nearby. So don't wear the clothes you have on anymore, just to be safe. Get rid of them. Hearing this, Shilian quickly went over and started to peel both Long Ying and Xuan Yizhen out of their outer robes. Don't wear this anymore. Don't wear this. Take it off. Take it all off. I'll pack up the clothes and bring them to the Palace of Lingwen tomorrow. I'll send people to come pick them up, Lingwen offered. No need, Shilian said. It's already embarrassing enough to trouble you like this every time without you personally making a trip on top of that. Your palace is busy. I can handle this myself. The next day, Shilian painstakingly packed the huge piles of clothes and carried the large bundles up to the heavenly capital by himself. When he arrived, it seemed that Lingwen had been waiting for him in her palace for a long time. Her palace wasn't as hustling and bustling as usual today, packed with gods flowing in and out. Shilian untied the large bundles, and the brightly colored ghost robes burst out of their wrappings, spilling onto the floor and covering the ground. He casually wiped away the sweat on his forehead as Lingwen strolled over. Was your investigation fruitful? Much ashamed it's been fruitless, Shilian sighed, sounding resigned. I apologize in advance. I don't have any helping hands, so unfortunately things are a bit scattered. After all the chaos yesterday, I don't know if I brought all of the robes. I keep feeling like I'm missing 1 or 2 pieces, but I'm not sure. That's not an issue, Lingwen said. Then she looked down and made a rough count. There are indeed a few pieces missing. Your Highness, I don't think I see the robe that the little ghost next to you was wearing. Shilian tapped his palm with his fist. Ah, you're right. I remember now. Long Ying has already gotten used to wearing it, and I forgot to collect it. I'll go grab it right now. Lingwen chuckled. No rush. Take care, Your Highness. However, Shilian didn't move to leave. He instead remained planted in place, his expression growing solemn. Lingwen was about to summon her subordinate heavenly officials to collect the ghost robes, but she was puzzled when she turned and saw that he was still there. It was just the 2 of them in the hall. Your Highness? Is there something else? Shilian watched her with a complicated expression. No, nothing. It's just that I wonder, if I did bring you the real Brocade Immortal, would you hide it away if I took my eyes off you? Lingwen's smile receded, but she still was extremely polite as she asked, Your Highness? Shilian watched her mildly. I've had an inkling from the very beginning. Lingwen remained at ease. What of? Most people, or ordinary nefarious creatures, wouldn't dare break into a temple of divine might. Not many individuals aside from Zhen Wu himself are familiar enough with the layout of them to steal objects under such heavy lockdown, let alone escape capture. I'm afraid that Lingwen Shenjun is the only other one who could know her way around so well. After all, the palace of Lingwen roamed every other god's palaces each and every day. It was more than familiar with everyone's domains. Lingwen grinned. Your Highness, your reasoning is a little too simplistic. The person with the easiest access is most suspicious. Based on that line of thinking, isn't it more likely that the Heavenly Emperor robbed himself? Shilian nodded. I must admit, you're not wrong. But what made me start to suspect you was the half-maquillage woman. What about the half-maquillage woman? Ling Wen asked. She had the fake brocade immortal in her possession and just happened to come by my door, Shilian replied. How could such a huge coincidence happen? Besides, she'd practically written suspicious on her face, like she was scared I wouldn't immediately find her dubious. Her intent was too obvious. Oh? What intent? Didn't she already say it herself? Shilian said. Exchange old for new. What she wanted was the old clothes in my Pucci shrine. When the brocade immortal was stolen, the Palace of Divine Might found out extremely quickly and reacted equally fast. An investigation started the moment it was stolen. Therefore, the thief might not dare keep it in their own possession, and would instead hide it away. But where would be the best hiding place? Hide a leaf in a forest. If Shilian wanted to hide the brocade immortal, he would turn it into an extremely inconspicuous and normal-looking hemp robe and toss it into the markets of the mortal realm, then keep an eye on it from afar. Normally, no one would want to buy such a coarsely made robe, but the life Shilian led couldn't be called normal. He had been wearing the same frayed cultivation robe for the past several years. He could only afford such clothing with the money he had. As long as clothing was clean and kept him warm, that was all he asked for, and he wasn't picky. In addition, he was the kind of person who possessed the incredible ability to pick out the most dangerous article of clothing out of countless other pieces in the big discount bin. And it was in this fashion, in self-congratulatory cheer at finding such a major discount, that he bought and brought home the legendary brocade immortal. Your Highness, your accusation is quite undue, Ling Wen said. You are from a martial god background, after all. You would subdue a half-maquillage woman in no time if she approached your door. She wouldn't be able to take any robes away, old or new. She certainly wouldn't, but who says she had to? How would she have been dealt with if this unexpected turn of events hadn't happened? Shilian said. If Shilian had assumed the half-maquillage woman had the real brocade immortal, then he would have surely reported it to Ling Wen, and Ling Wen would have most likely descended personally. And, like she had the day before, she would have probably told Shilian that all the clothes needed to be brought back to her palace to be assessed just to be safe. It was too bad that Xuan Yizhen was there at the time. Ling Wen couldn't have expected that he'd be so knowledgeable after having only worn the brocade immortal once, and that he could correctly identify the brocade immortal in the half-maquillage woman's hands as a fake. This meant it was no longer easy nor logical for Ling Wen to whisk away all the clothes at Pucci Shrine. All of Shilian's information was provided by Ling Wen. She could also openly make inquiries and keep constant track of Shilian's progress. When the half-maquillage woman was exposed, Ling Wen immediately sent Shilian new communication through the array that Ghost City was distributing counterfeits that had to be managed. She had wasted no time in throwing new missions at him, giving him little time to think too deeply about anything questionable with her requests. I don't know if you were the one who distributed the counterfeits, but it was indeed you who provided me with intel. You probably wanted to draw me away from Pucci Shrine before coming for Lang Ying, Shilian said. But Lang Ying had tagged along with him. I don't know if you anticipated that the brocade immortal would show himself so suddenly, but you have no trouble improvising. There were so many ghost robes with authenticity unknown. A change would surely arise to slip the real brocade immortal away amidst the chaos. And when the brocade immortal showed himself, Ling Wen could also use that as an excuse to personally and openly confiscate all clothing on site. As for how things would be assessed, how the real thing would be identified, the explanation for that silhouette, that would all be on Ling Wen's word. Having listened to that point, Ling Wen gestured for him to pause. Your Highness, please stop right there. So you believe that Lang Ying, that's his name, right? You think that the robe he was wearing is the brocade immortal? Don't forget he didn't obey your orders when he put it on. Am I wrong? You said so yourself. You have to know that the brocade immortal is extremely powerful. Even a ghost king would not be able to resist a direct order if he wore it. You also said that it must have encountered some special circumstance, Shilian replied. As for what that could be, I'm sure you know better than I do. I hope you can answer the question. Let me drink. Ling Wen frowned slightly and folded her hands behind her. Your Highness, does this mean you have deemed me the thief? She asked softly. Pardon my bluntness, but this makes me somewhat displeased. Shulian inclined his head. I apologize. Apology accepted, Lingwen said. However, Your Highness, as long as you have the evidence, you may make your adamant accusations. But this is nothing but speculation. I didn't have any evidence before today, Shulian replied slowly. In fact, I didn't have anything to go on at all before I stepped into the palace of Lingwen. But I've gotten it during this conversation. Lingwen gestured an invitation for him to proceed. Please. That evidence is this. You never bothered to count the exact number of ghost robes, Shulian stated. Lingwen's expression barely changed aside from the slight stiffening of her brows. The number of ghost robes I brought was indeed lacking, but there wasn't just a single robe missing, Shulian counted. In fact, I only brought 88 pieces, a deficit of 10. I kept every piece of clothing I considered suspicious away from you. You never mentioned that the count was off, but with one look you noticed that the one Lang Ying was wearing wasn't here. So pray tell, how did you know that particular one was missing? Lingwen raised her hand. Please wait. She unhurriedly recounted the ghost robes and discovered that there were indeed 88 pieces of clothing. Maintaining her impassive tone, she replied, I suppose you can say that no one is perfect, and something will always be overlooked. Very well, Shulian said. Since you've counted seriously this time and have looked over every single piece, then let me ask whether you noticed this. The robe Lang Ying wore yesterday is among these 88 ghost robes. Your Highness, what are you implying? Lingwen asked. Shulian crouched and pulled a robe from the pile of random clothing, shaking it open. It was a plain, white hemp robe. The one Lang Ying wore yesterday is obviously here. Why didn't you notice it when you were counting? Your Highness should also know that there's nothing special about that hemp robe. You can't blame me for not recognizing it at a glance, Lingwen replied. It really is nothing to write home about, Shulian agreed. So then, as Lingwen Shenjun is so competent and reliable, so hard-working and cautious, why would you so rashly declare that such an inconspicuous robe was missing when you hadn't fully counted? Lingwen's smile did not falter. There are too many robes. My eyes glazed over. The scrolls on my desk are piled high as mountains, and my mind blanks at the sight of them. Your eyes didn't glaze over. It's the opposite, Shulian said. Your eyes are too sharp. Let me tell you something else. I didn't actually bring the robe Lang Ying wore yesterday. The one in my hands right now is a replica of the original. I was careful with the details. How are you able to tell with just one look that the real one Lang Ying wore isn't here? Lingwen was baffled. Fake or not, either way I didn't see it. Your Highness, have you worked on so many cases that you're constantly overthinking things? Why would you spend so much effort creating a replica? Shulian could tell that she was dodging the question. I'm not done yet. I'll tell you one last thing. He lifted the white hemp robe and said softly, This hemp robe was just a random one I pulled from the pile. That replica based on the original, careful with the details, was just nonsense I made up. As you said, why would I waste time making a replica? You've been tricked. This one isn't even the same color as the robe Lang Ying wore yesterday. Did you not think anything was off when I questioned you with it as evidence? Shulian stared at Lingwen with intent. Lingwen, right now, I only need you to answer a very simple question. What color was the robe Lang Ying wore yesterday? Lingwen didn't answer immediately. She slowly raised her eyelashes. The white hemp robe fell to the ground. You are an esteemed top civil god, and countless scrolls detailing the matters of the upper court passed through your hands, Shulian said. Your memory shouldn't be this bad. Why can't you even recall the color of the robe Lang Ying wore yesterday? You can't answer because you're guarding against my potential trickery. You daren't answer because you never knew what color it was in the first place. Because yesterday, when you saw him wearing what you saw him wearing was simply a headless, sleeveless, ragged cloth sack. He made sure she could hear every word in his accusation clearly. The brocade immortal takes on thousands of forms, but that's nothing more than an illusion. But no matter how powerful the illusion is, it will always be ineffective on one individual. the one who created it. No matter what shape it takes, it will always show its true form to its creator. You glanced through these 88 ghost robes and didn't see a strange, headless, sleeveless cloth sack. Of course you knew at once that the brocade immortal wasn't in the pile. That's the end of the chapter. So he's accusing Ling Wen of creating the brocade immortal and also stealing it.
Okay.
Alright, let me stop.
He fucking rang her a new one.
Yeah. He was like, actually, it's this. Actually, it's this. Actually, it's this. And she's like, what the fuck?